I'm Doug Doherty with Hamilton Flourishing. We're so glad you could join us today. Real excited. Got an exciting guest today in the studio with us, Representative Robin Smith from right here in Hamilton County. And I've known Robin for a number of years. She's a great person, a great representative for our area. And she knows an awful lot about politics. She has been the state Republican, what do you call it?
Chairman.
Chairman for 6 years, weren't you?
4 years.
4 years. And she's been involved in politics for a long time, and she's a great lady. And I thought we kind of let's start on a personal level first. Robin, there's Chattanooga is changing so much, and the area changing. There's so many new people moving in. So there may be people that are watching that don't know you. So tell us a little about yourself, and then tell us a little about where District 26 covers.
Sure. I am a Hickson graduate. I graduated in 1981 from Hickson High School, attended 1 year at UT Chattanooga, and you know, the good Lord's got a sense of humor. I was supposed to attend 4 years at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. Went to play tennis with a good friend of mine. He was picking up his scholarship at the UTC athletic department, and back then I was about 20 pounds lighter, very athletic, and the guy inquired, and he needed an athletic trainer of the female persuasion, and on the spot I taped his ankle and earned a college scholarship. And so I spent my freshman year at UT Chattanooga studying for the basics of nursing, then transferred to Knoxville and finished the degree there in the College of Nursing at UT, and finished there in 85, and then spent my early years of nursing in the cardiac program at University of Alabama Birmingham in their cardiac medicine transplant program, a very high intensity area. And Scott and I, my husband of 35 years this past week, we moved back to Chattanooga, and I had really been counting on a job at Erlanger doing coronary care and then also working as a research nurse. And the grant fell through. This was a long time ago. And so I pursued some medical and pharmaceutical sales for quite some while, and then went back to school and was certified in project management through a distance learning program with Stanford, and began consulting and doing project management in the healthcare policy space. And all of this time I was volunteering in political campaigns, staying involved in church. Scott and I teach Sunday school and have for years at Abba's House in Hickson. And so we love our community. And you ask where Tennessee House District 26 is. It starts at St. John's Restaurant downtown, and it goes all the way up the Market Street side on the western edge. It crosses the pedestrian bridge, jumps over into the North Chattanooga area, then goes up into Stewart Heights, Highland Plaza, Hickson, Middle Valley, a little bit of Soddy Daisy, and we're just past the nuclear towers on the western side. And because if you look at a map, Doug, precincts are drawn in the river. And so when I go kayaking, I am doing constituent work. There are several precincts on the eastern edge in Harrison that are part of the district in House 26. So I have a terrific district. I'm so blessed.
Yeah, that's great. Now, how long have you been serving?
I have only been serving since November of 2018. I was the consultant running 21 campaigns in 2018. And one of my customers, Mr. Gerald McCormick, had to move suddenly, and within 3 weeks of early voting, and we needed a candidate, and I turned out to be that candidate.
Wow. Wow. And then you got so involved in politics that you were the state chairman. Not chairman. Is that right? Chairman?
That's right. I was involved at the State Republican Party for 4 years as vice chairman and chairman. And that was during the window of time. I was the last Republican Party chairman to serve under a Democrat governor, a Democrat House Speaker, as well as we had a lieutenant governor that was a Republican in the state Senate, but organizationally it still remained to be a Democrat.
So you probably had a lot to do with flipping the state.
We worked really hard and raised almost $2 million. We're in 28 races. We really, that was the year that Barack Obama became our president in 2008, but we flipped the majorities, and we had not just a functional majority, but also an organizational majority in the Senate. We had a functional and a House majority in the House, and then the 2 years following, in 2010, Governor Haslam became the Republican governor. So we did a lot of groundwork, and I love that, because winning elections is fun, but the most important thing you can do now is to win hearts and minds. And we had to change a lot of hearts and minds and move them. Well, you listen, and you answer specific questions, and you don't talk in talking points. You dialogue and try to develop relationships. And it's not easy. It's easier just to raise money and appeal to demographics. And I think that we're witnessing today in 2021, and all our culture is so divided based on demographic data rather than trying to find things in common that we share. I think everybody, Doug, would agree we want to have a great education system. I think everyone would agree we want affordable, patient-driven health care. I think everyone would agree we want public safety. And where we differ is how to get to those points. But if you sit down and talk with people, you find that there are points of commonality and common ground, and you just need to iron those other things out. So suffice it to say, there are those on the left that despise me. There are those on the right who despise me, because my job as a state representative is to solve problems and not just keep a problem alive and try to win arguments. And so it's really about making our community better and make it thrive. Hamilton flourishing. It kind of works.
We hope it flourishes.
Yes.
We pray it does. Now let me ask you something. You have so you've got a lot of years you've spent in politics. 2022 may seem far away to some people, but politically it's really close.
It is.
I mean, tell me, as you look into 2022, on the national scale, on the state scale, on the local scale, what do you see politically? What's coming?
Well,
pretend that people don't know.
No, well, and goodness, if I knew what was coming, I would write a book, and I would probably be one of the more wealthy women in America. But what I anticipate, based on what I'm hearing, is there continues to be such a harsh divide. I think that's going to continue, and where we're hoping to find points of agreement, I think those are going to be scarce. I think that now it's a matter of, you're going to agree with a position of someone based on the messenger, not the message. And that's horrible. So I think that we're going to be very divided, because, even if someone that is a moderate says something, because we have to label people and put everyone in little buckets. If a moderate says something, then the conservative right or the progressive hard left are going to be hesitant to find a point of agreement, because they want to own that. And sometimes relevance in the world of politics, you need a problem to continue. And so your divisiveness is only it's effective in making you relevant in the area. So I think the divisiveness continues. However, there will be most likely a shift and I think that the U.S. Senate is likely to pick up a seat or two on the Republican side. In the U.S. House, depending on how a few things happen. For instance, I read for the first time today that there are very intentional discussions now about increasing interest rates. Add that to our inflationary mix, the cost of living, things are happening economically that are not sustainable. We're seeing the artificially created shortage of labor, and that was government induced because we offered such robust entitlements through welfare that we have created a labor shortage, even though we've got plenty of workers. I mean, there was a post on our state website. There's a site that collects the number of jobs and posts them.
Like 260,000.
There's over 250,000 jobs that were available at this one snapshot in time, and we were also paying out just under 120,000 employment benefits for the unemployed. And what does that tell you? We almost have 2 jobs for every person. And granted, I do know that some of these are lower income jobs, but they're the jobs where you get tips. And when you're looking at a labor force which was really devastated with COVID, which was the restaurant industry, hospitality industry, many of these jobs are coming back, and so you can't expect to find a $40,000, $50,000 salaried job in that space, but they really do operate on generous tipping. And so anyway, all this to say, what you're going to find next year, I do believe, is the House, the U.S. House, may become very close to flipping in the midterm back to the Republicans. It will be close.
I think it's only not flipped about twice since 1930.
Correct. That's right.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting, but I do
Yeah.
think that the economic performance will be the driver.
Now, the state legislature and half of the state senate is up.
Yes, that's right. I'll be up for re-election, and I am planning to run. Yes.
Good, good. And then county-wide, what are we looking at?
Oh my gracious! 2022 will, if you were around in 2016, it was a very, very busy election year. The county school board members are up. Some of the county commissioners are up. You've got the county mayor race is up. I mean, the judges are up. We've got the races like ours that are every 2 years. I mean,
And the governors.
Well, the governor's up in 2022. That's absolutely right. In November, and so there will be some very significant races, a lot of energy that will be at the state level and not just focus on the federal level. But put a little wrinkle in this, in that the decennial census data has been made available, and by January of this coming up year, new district lines will be announced. So I will be running in a different district, most likely. It will be altered in some capacity, simply based on growth and engage. The Senate. The Tennessee Senate has a committee that they will form. The Tennessee House has a committee that they will form, and they will look at the respective plans, and then that information will be pushed down to the county level, and that redistricting process will happen at the county commission level and the school board level. So there will be.
They draw their own districts.
They will have here locally. There will be a redistricting committee that's formulated, and we'll have input on that.
Wow.
And we will. 2022 is a very consequential year. If you're not registered to vote, or you have moved here and you need to update your registration, please do so. We have a terrific Hamilton County Election Commission, and I think they're ready to serve you. But don't miss an opportunity to be a part of a very consequential election next year.
Yeah, and one of the things we noticed last year was an off-year election is that the turnout was so low in the historically in the city elections that people are getting elected with 800 votes and things like that. I mean,
Right.
I'm not talking about the difference. I'm talking about total.
Total. That's right.
So your vote really does count.
It does
and
count.
It makes a difference. And all your property taxes go into the education system, which most of them do, and then. So you've got a $450 million public education system with 45,000 students down with the county, and so it's a big deal for the school board and the county commission. And good grief, we just announced yesterday a new county commissioner who left the school board. So
a lot of change.
Lots of stuff going
Lots
on.
of change.
Lots of going on. Well, that's kind of the future. Tell us about this last year. This seemed to me like a year of a lot of achievements for the Tennessee legislature. When you look at your this last session, 2021, what do you think were kind of the signal achievements of? I'm going to ask you about what you think your signal achievement was, but, but just the whole legislature.
Well, first of all, it's good that the pandemic is over. The data bears the realization that we're now managing COVID, and we're doing so very well. And I know that I'm embarrassed by how political that response turned, because we're better than that. But I'm just relieved that here in the state of Tennessee, that during the COVID period, that we were one of 7 states nationally whose economy actually grew and didn't recede backward. And so a lot of the federal money that we are being given to address COVID shortages and problems, those are now turning into investment dollars rather than entitlement dollars. And what I mean by that is, we had a special session in Tennessee talking about our signal achievement. I think that our governor and our leadership in the House and the Senate understood that this is one of those moments, because our ledger, our accounting ledger, our budget was well and thriving. So we can take the monies that are coming from the federal government that other states are having to pour into unemployment benefits, pour into entitlement dollars, and we can take this money, the same money, and repurpose it and invest it into things like education. And so we had a special session in the month of January before we really launched into typical business around the budget, and passed significant legislation. Matter of fact, I just came from meeting with Commissioner Penny Schwinn, who was here in the state, or in the county. And what we did was looked at learning loss, in making some investment plans into summer school programs, adapting and really ratcheting up the literacy. I think we could all be in agreement that if we do not increase our proficiency numbers in literacy between 3rd and 8th grade, we lose those children. And we can either educate or incarcerate. That's really harsh, but that really boils down to how the bridge is there. And so I think that one of the greatest things that we did in this session was to find ways to take the welfare monies that were, or the monies being used from the federal government that are in other states having to patch holes. But because Tennessee is in no debt, we have a balanced budget thanks to many, many people with whom I serve. We were able to make those investment dollars. So that was a very accomplished signal. But I will tell you, that comes with responsibility too. Because in knowing that now all this money is available, we're either going to see proficiencies change and improve, or you're going to have a legislative body that's resolved to change significantly education in this state. And what I mean by that is, I've been very fortunate to sit in on meetings, and we're all recognizing that in the here and now, we have the resources, we have the stage is set to move children from proficiencies in reading and writing in the 30s and 40s over 50%. And should that not happen in the next few years, I can anticipate we're going to see some significant education reform in this state. And I would advocate, so much so, that the per pupil state portion of spending would follow the child regardless in an open enrollment type situation. So that you get away from vouchers, you get away from talk of assigning some type of a program, but instead just open all the schools up to competition, and do something on that nature. But in the meantime, I think that having talk like that is a good incentive to see if we can move the needle in the traditional schools that we currently have. We balance the budget. A $42 billion budget is a significant achievement. Looking at what we did in the space of healthcare, one of the great accomplishments is making healthcare more consumer-driven as well as patient-friendly. And it's a very complicated issue, but there's this thing called pharmacy benefit managers. Pharmaceutical pricing has to be a little more transparent. Insurance companies can't take 2 bites of profit out of the same dollar in the process. And so that's a new law that will go into effect in the coming year, where that should translate into more information in the hands of patients about your medicines, and over time it should reduce the cost. So on the scale of the whole state, maximizing the entire budget, I would say in education and healthcare, and the judicial reform is something that it's not real glamorous. And when you're on the center right, most of the time we're assigned with the ideology that we need to lock up criminals. Well, we do. We should. But in reality, those over 80% are going to return to their communities after their time served. And so what happens during that window of time when they have paid their debt to society? What happens to those individuals? And what we're finding is they come out, and are they equipped to return as a functioning, as a productive adult? And so I applaud what Governor Lee has done with some of his judicial and sentencing reform to make sure within that last year and within those last months, and there's reentry programs and thinking about how to make these individuals a true, indeed, productive citizen once they return to their community, whether they're a mother, a father, a worker, a laborer, whatever they choose to be. We don't want them to be forced back into an enterprise of crime.
Good stuff all, and I really applaud the whole move towards literacy. That's been one of
Yes.
our soapboxes for 3-4 years now, ever since I've been doing this, is the proficiency in literacy is so bad, but it's a nationwide problem. It's not just Tennessee, it's not just Hamilton County, but I love the phrase educate or
Incarcerate.
Incarcerate. That sums it all up pretty well, and and there's really no excuse for it. And in other states, I know Mississippi just went from the bottom of the pile to the middle of the pile, and they were the only state to improve last year in literacy, and it took the state legislature to act to make it happen. So,
and two topics that were probably gained so much focus and attention were around the critical race theory legislation, as well as the constitutional carry. And if I might just spend just a moment on both of those.
Because I wanted to ask you what you thought were the most,
yes.
your own engagement.
Well, in the constitutional carry, our Second Amendment has a different meaning to different people depending on if you embrace the Constitution as a fluid document, then you don't believe that you have a right as a citizen to carry a gun. But as a constitutional purist, and I do believe that we are given a Second Amendment right to carry a gun. However, with every right comes a responsibility. And relative to my vote for the constitutional carry, I want to be very clear. We have to protect the Constitution. We have to protect our constitutional rights. And the unfortunate thing is when there is a problem in our society, we want to assign a morality to inanimate objects, whether they be opioid, illicit drugs, or whether they be guns, whether they be some inanimate object. And an inanimate object takes the morality of the person holding it. And so rather than confiscating guns and rather than confiscating opioids, we have to learn how to exist in society, because what we saw during the very harsh restriction of opioid medications were people in authentic chronic pain were turning to illicit drugs and counterfeit opioids, and they were addicted to heroin and other medications. And the same thing with guns. There will be a black market. And so, what I would simply say is we in the state of Tennessee operate and protect our constitutional rights. On the front of the critical race theory prohibition, as some people want to coin it, rather than it being a critical race theory prohibition, what we did instead were say, and I was a co-sponsor of this bill, there were 14 items that were listed specifically that could not be taught in the discourse, in the context of a classroom. And the specifics of some of these were that you could not blame an individual based on their race or gender or sex for problems of persons past that were also of a different race, gender, or sex. And it was very clear we didn't attack a curriculum, but instead we wanted to say in the state of Tennessee, the mindset that we embrace here is that we view each other as equals. And we do understand that we are endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights. Among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and God made us all equal. And so we embrace that standing in this state rather than dividing people by gender, by identifying markers. And we don't want our children indoctrinated in school. And what we're finding, and I was sent a photograph from a parent from East Hamilton School of a teacher's door that was decorated in very, I guess you could say, activist language. And so we're seeing in the classroom activism and not academics. And so what I really am proud about that bill was you can call it what you want. We want a certain mindset that's devoted to academics, and we want to prepare our children for their best days ahead. We want to embrace our history. We want to understand and learn from our past, but we don't want to keep reliving and taking the failures of our past and bringing them into the future and pretending as if those are our limitations now. They're not.
Yeah.
We're all created equal.
There was a great letter to the editor by Dr. Lucian Ellington from UTC, one of the local papers, and he made the point that people were saying, well, if you take out critical race theory or these lines, you're erasing critical thinking. And he said that's not, and he's a professional teacher of educators. He said they're not the same at all.
That's right.
We are still teaching critical thinking, and you can even talk about these things using critical thinking, but you don't teach them as if they were de facto reality.
Right.
You don't teach them as fact. In other words, the whole idea that the one race is guilty for everything that happened in another race.
Sure.
I mean, you just don't teach those kind of things.
That's
They're not
right.
healthy. They don't help anybody. It's not the way America was built, where we were going.
And it's
you know.
candidly the antithesis of the legacy and teachings of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.,
Yeah.
who was famed to have been quoted to say that, you know, I long for the day that my children will be judged by the content of their character rather than the color of their skin. And so what we've seen with this new type of curriculum and teaching is the investment of color, of demographics, and those are so limiting, and we really deserve to be better for our kids.
Yeah. We're talking to Robin Smith. Robin is the state representative from District 26, which goes from the middle of Chattanooga up into Harrison. So,
And Soddy Daisy.
Soddy Daisy. So, and she will be up for election next year. 2022 is going to be a big year. You're going to see a lot of interviews from Hamilton Flourishing talking to people who are interested in 2022 from a lot of different perspectives on a lot of different issues. And so we hope that you'll stay tuned. Now, Robin, if somebody wants to get in touch with you, we have a slide I think we can put on the screen
Sure.
that has your email address. So
Right.
if people want to get in contact with you, they can do that. But do you have a Facebook page that people
I
can
do.
follow
I
you?
am a Facebook person as well as Instagram. On Facebook, you can reach me at Robin Smith, Tennessee, and that would be facebook.com/Robin Smith, Tennessee, and you might recognize my face. And then on Instagram, it's Robin T. Smith 001. And that is the name of my account. So I would love to have you follow me. And if you need to call the office for a constituent matter, and we do have districts, but I can tell you that as I've told our mayors, as I've told our other colleagues with whom I serve, you know, my job as a representative is to bring every resource back to this area and serve. But our phone number in the office is area code 615-741-2548. 615-741-2548.
Great. Well, Robin, we think you do a great job. We're really proud of you. We're
honored.
reaching thousands of people a week now with these broadcasts and newsletters and all kinds of things, and we think you do a great job and provide a lot of leadership to people who care about significant issues in Hamilton County. And more than that, you've got a heart that I think you probably even care about the people who don't agree with you.
Oh, I do. Well, and you know, I spoke the other night, and maybe this is a little risky to say in this day, but you know, as a Christian that believes in Jesus Christ, I'm not accountable for someone's voting record, but I am accountable before my Christ and my Lord, how I treat others, how I represent Him as an ambassador, and how I invest in our community. So whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, or an independent, we have got to invest in our community. And if we vote only, if we worry only about our voting records, then we're further dividing ourselves. And I can promise you, if we would just focus on what's good for our community, then not only will we have a greater community, but we'll be better ambassadors for Christ.
Thank you. Thank you, Robin, for
Sure.
talking with us today. Robin, District 26, Hamilton County, Robin Smith. So this has been Doug Doherty for Hamilton Flourishing. Thank you for joining us.